Hello again, my name is Michael S Garner. I am a artist, writer, creator of an online comic book called Visions of the New, which you can see at visionsofthenew.com. I like to do kind of reviews and my thoughts on certain things that I love about what's going on, especially lately in the world of sci-fi and comic book related material, TV shows and movies. And it's been a little while, but one of my favorite things in the whole damn world that's influenced me so much has been Star Trek, specifically Star Trek The Next Generations, which I grew up on. And they've released Star Trek Picard. And I couldn't believe that he was going to come back to do this. I know that with everything coming back, I shouldn't have been too surprised, but I was really happy because of what has happened with Discovery. And basically the amount of money they have spent on Discovery to make it look the way that it does. And I am kind of a fan of Discovery. I have not watched season 2. I've only watched season 1. But I accepted it for what it was. It's a different view of Star Trek, but you also have to take into account that this takes place before certain events that have happened in Star Trek. But Next Generations by far, even above the Kirk days, even above the originals, is my favorite Star Trek, and I am definitely a Trekkie. So I just wanted to give my thoughts about the premiere episode of Star Trek Picard that premiered yesterday. And just a warning right away, this is going to have some spoilers in it. There's no way that I could do this review without having some spoilers in here. So first of all, I just want to go over my fandom just a little bit, just so that you know my background on Star Trek, because it relates directly into this first episode of Star Trek Picard, which is the first thing that got me into Star Trek, because I was never a huge fan of the Kirk days, even though I watched all the repeats and because it was in syndication when I was younger, and they would show all the old episodes of Star Trek, I would watch them, and I got them, but I was never a huge fan of Star Trek when I was younger. Granted, I was very young when I saw it. I was like 10 or 9 years old. And when Star Trek The Next Generation premiered, late 80s, I think it was 87, they had a commercial that had all the characters on. I'm like, oh great, Star Trek again, blah blah blah. And then suddenly I saw this one character with light skin and yellow eyes, and I went, who the hell is that? And for my little kid mind, I just went, he intrigued me so much. I've never seen somebody like that in Star Trek, and it was Commander Data. And I am happy to say that this is where the spoilers come in, that this episode of Star Trek Picard is very heavily leaning upon Data, and I'm happy for that, because Data was one of my favorite characters on Star Trek, if not my favorite, next to Picard. I just love the fact that they basically told you how unique the character of Data was, because I hated the fact that sometimes, even when I was growing up, even my friends who became fans of Star Trek The Next Generation, they didn't see Data as being like unique in that way. It's like, oh, he's just an android. I'm like, well, Vision's an android, and this is back before the Avengers ever came up with a movie. And I'm like, this Data encompassed so much of Star Trek The Next Generation. And for my childhood, he was, whenever I saw him on screen, I was just so intrigued by him and his whole story. And it basically went from this. It went Picard, it went Data, Worf a little bit in there. It was like Worf and Riker. But yeah, and it just went down the line. And we're not even going to go into the other things, because this whole series is going to go into Deep Space Nine and all that, and that's a whole other story. So the new character that was introduced that we find out is a possible synthetic, which would be a combination of human tissue and android mechanics. I was kind of surprised that they killed her off after an incredible battle scene in the first episode, but then they did the whole crux where there's a twin of her. I'm like, oh, they come in twins. That was a little annoying, but I'm like, okay, that's fine. But you gave us a taste of what is to come with this and what happened with the synthetics. I'm not going to go into that this episode, because I think that they're going to dive more into that and everything. And I didn't mind at first. I was like, oh god, you're going to make a whole mess of androids and he's not going to be unique. But they pressed on this episode, like I said, of how unique Data was to the Star Trek universe. And when they first said that she was the daughter of Data, I'm like, okay, this is 30, 40 years, whatever. This is so many years after the events of the last Star Trek Next Generation movie, Nemesis. But the first thing that I thought was, well, Data already had a daughter. He created a daughter called Lo. And she kind of looked like Lo, just like a modern day version with a little bit more modern hair. And I was like, oh my god, it's her. And then they're like, no, it's not Lo at all. It's not Lo. But that was the first thought that came to my mind. And I'll give you my other theory in a minute. as soon as they introduced the twin of the girl who died already in the first episode, who was supposed to be a synthetic, the one thing that I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, why would you introduce two? Why would you introduce two? And then at the end of the episode, we see that the other one, who is basically a genius or whatever, working on a Borg cube on some type of experiment up there. The first thing that I thought was, wait a second. Wait. There is another thing that could have possibly happened. I don't know how you can make sense of this, but okay, let's go flat out there. Data did the Borg Queen in First Contact, and they had sex. And that was when she was in the process of giving Data human emotions, giving him skin grafting, giving him all this stuff to make him to be somewhat human, more like a Borg, half human, a cyborg. And I was like, are they going to say that he has a DNA or something like that? And he has a kid? I don't know what they're going to do with this. But I was intrigued by that part. Because I was wondering, I don't like for Star Trek The Next Generation to be so heavily reliant upon the Borg, because the Borg were very popular villains of Star Trek Next Generation. And I didn't like what they did in First Contact. I liked that movie, but I didn't like the introduction of the Borg Queen because it went against everything that was the Borg. The Borg is supposed to be just this force of technological nature. And it was just, and it's never supposed to be one singular mind that controls them all. It's supposed to just be a group mind. And when they introduced the Borg Queen, that kind of threw that concept a little bit out the door, saying that there's a leader to this. But I accepted it at the time because I can't remember her name, who did the actual role of the Borg Queen, but she was incredible in that role. And I was sold, but I always remember what the Borg were. So knowing that this series was going to lean a little bit heavily into the Borg kind of made me go, please, please, please don't rehash any type of stuff. But to bring up a point where Data possibly has a kid, that could be intriguing for the season. To go into the namesake of this whole TV series, Picard, I just want to say that, well, Patrick Stewart, as always, he just does a great job as being Jean-Luc Picard. He has been the face of Star Trek Next Generation, despite the fact that I'm more of a Data person now. But he's been the face of the Star Trek Next Generation, and I'm just so happy to see him come back. And I can't say anything bad about him. He just did a great job in this, and I can't wait to see his progression. And I was kind of worried about him going back from Starfleet, him having an angst against Starfleet because of something that happened in the past. But when they did that interview where the reporter pressed him upon the events that led him to leaving Starfleet, I basically was sold. I'm like, this is going to be a very deeply involved story, and I want to see, and I believe the writers have really thought about the events that led up to this, and I'm like, I want to see what happened. I want to know now. And I really do feel like this is a continuation of The Next Generation. And I was never, honestly, I know I said this about the movies, like, I appreciate the movies when I was growing up, but I didn't think the movies were that strong. The Next Generation movies, the four. Insurrection, First Contact, Generations, and Nemesis. I thought that they were a little bit dumbed down for a mass audience, which is perfectly fine. But Star Trek, it was a mass audience thing when it was on TV, because it was an incredibly popular TV series when it went into syndication. But I just, there were a lot of things that happened in the movies. I was like, you had to do that, really? So to see this to be another continuation of that, but possibly going deeper than they did in the movies, I really love. Side note, I love Picard's caretakers, the people who were helping him out in his home. I think that there may be something a little bit, I don't want to say sinister, but something else there that we're not going to find out until this season progresses. Just because this is certain things about it that just rub me the wrong way. I'm like, okay, I love them, but something's going to happen. So all in all, I did love this introduction, this first episode of Star Trek Picard. When Star Trek Discovery came out, it took me a long time to sign up for CBS All Access to watch it, because I didn't want to do it for one show. No offense to CBS All Access, but a lot of their shows did not appeal to me. And knowing that there's only one show that I would care about, to purchase that app, it just kind of made me go, no. But I did at one point, just to see it. And I did like the first season of Star Trek Discovery. I have not seen a second. I will now. And obviously, when they announced Picard, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sign up for it no matter what, because I have to see this show. And just to see it with the abilities that they have now with special effects and certain things that they can do, and like the money that they spent on this is like they spent movie money on this. I just can't wait to see this, and I think that this is a great first premiere episode of Picard. And I say this with greatest of admiration. If they did this with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, I would go crazy. If they brought them back and they gave them this type of a budget and they gave them this type of series and went deep into it again. That's how it's cited, and that's the second. It goes Next Generation, it goes Buffy the Vampire Slayer with me, as far as like top shows that have ever influenced me as far as a person in my life. And I can't wait to see where this series goes, and I will give more reviews on it and talk a little bit more deeply. But right now, it's just the surface. We got the crux of what the story is and everything like that, and where this will lead to. And I can't wait to see other people like 709, Riker, Deanna, all those people coming back. And hopefully there'll be more surprises. Maybe some people from Deep Space Nine. What do you guys think? Did you like the first episode of Picard? Did you pay for CBS All Access just to watch Star Trek Picard? Like I did. Once again, my name is Michael S Garner. I draw and write an online comic book. I'm also a registered massage therapist. There's so many damn things that I do. I draw an online comic book called Visions of the New. If you want to check it out, go to visionsofthenew.com. And I will see you next time.